Despite being in first place in the Atlantic Division midway through our second season, 34 wins on the year up to this point, 8 wins in our last 10. The question coming out of the last episode was whether or not it was worth going out and making acquisitions and building, upon this team, adding to this team before the trade deadline. It's the same situation we found ourselves in, the same dilemma that we found ourselves in, the same question that we had to answer last year. And last year we held off and, we were within 2 wins away of the Stanley Cup. 2 wins away. We lost, of course, in 6 games to the Dallas Stars. This year, of course, the circumstances are just a little bit different. Of course, losing Mike Hoffman and Evgeny Dadonov, relying on Owen Tippett and Henrik Borgstrom to replace them, has worked out relatively well. Not extremely well, but you look at this team, what they've been able to accomplish, the balance is pretty damn strong. And when it comes to this game in general, I guess you could say it reflects in real life as well. Adding players at the deadline, even if it looks like a good fit, especially by the game's metrics, doesn't always work, and it can feel like if you add the wrong player at the wrong time, instead of improving your chances, you screw over your chances, even if it's a higher overall player that you've added to the team. So, in the day sense, admittedly, I'm still not entirely sure what I want to do, both for the offensive and defensive side of things. Now, defensively, the decision to make would be pretty simple. We'd bump down Carpenter, get rid of move Strawman down, get rid of Carpenter, probably send him. I don't know if we'd be sending him back to junior or if he was a CHL player. He'd be going down to the AHL for the rest of the year, and we'd find someone else in the top 4. That could work. That would be a decent enough move. Would that screw over our chances? Would that make the defense a bit too good? Potentially, because there is such a thing. And then forward-wise, there's no doubt we could go out and we could acquire a Nick Foligno, an Alex Iafallo, a Brendan Gallagher, a Thomas Tatar. Not all of them, of course. But we could go out and find help. Relying on Tippett and Borgstrom, I don't necessarily want to play them in kind of a more defensive role on the third line, but both of them would be capable, especially Tippett. But that third line's been pretty solid. 22 points for Vetrano. He should hit 30, which is normally the target. Howard's been a little bit behind that. Malgin on 18 points. You can drop down Brett Connolly, who hasn't exactly been what I was hoping he would be after what he accomplished last year, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. But does he deserve a chance to turn it around? That's another question, of course. There are changes that could be made, but it's the question of would we be making changes for the sake of making changes? Is this team good enough? Is this team well balanced enough to make something happen? If not, then yes, we do need to make those changes. The question, too, becomes if we move a player out who sits or who gets traded, because Dryden Hunt, I'm intrigued to see what happens. He's 25. If we could get a little bit of extra development out of him, that would be pretty good. Sorella at 24, probably not the best chance in the world to get a bit more development out of him, but it could be done. Malgin's 24, Howard looks 25, Vetrano is what he is at this point. And then down in the AHL, Heponiemi's going to be making a push for a top 6 role next season. Again, he's not a third liner. If he's in the NHL, it's as a skill guy. Otherwise, we're just not going to be getting the most out of him. So there are moves that could be made. We do have players that could be acquired. The main thing here, though, that I'm intrigued by is that Ottawa Senators pick, because they are currently in a top 3 spot. Of course, we sent our pick to Tampa to acquire Sergachev after we let Uyghur go to the Sens, and the Sens are in a top 3 spot right now, so that draft pick isn't going to have as much value as we want. And if it's, outside of the lottery, why even keep the pick? Could be the question. In terms of what we have to give up, though, it is that first. I don't know if we'd want to, look into moving our first-round pick next year already. That's always a bit scary. Goaltending-wise, Spencer Knight's going nowhere. And nor is Bobrovsky, but Spencer Knight's going nowhere. In terms of defensive prospects, we really don't have many to give up. We're keeping Carpenter, obviously. I want to keep Arttukin. Alos has already seen crazy development this season. And Kolyachinok is okay. We could give him up in a deal. Max Gilden, we could give up. Pretty much it comes down to We can get one player, forward or defense, with that first round pick. But from there, we would have to look at giving up someone like Denisenko or Saron Noel. And I just don't know if that's a good idea. Or, picks next year and then we use someone like Cliff Poo to get the deal done. It sucks because it is the question over right now, how much would we mess with our team balance? Again, defensively, if we drop Carpenter down to the AHL, is that the right call? I mean, he hasn't exactly looked out of place at the NHL level. He's very well-rounded to this point. Is that the best way to go about things? Although apparently he doesn't get along with Stralman. You drop Stralman down to the third pairing. Is that worth it? I mean, again, it's always worth it to give up assets if you think you have a shot at the Stanley Cup, and I would say that we very much do. Defensively, though, there's really only one guy that I think we could bring in, and that's Ryan Pulock, although he's not on the block. And wasn't he on the block in the last episode, or was I thinking of Leddy? Maybe I was thinking of Leddy. I could have sworn Ryan Pulock was on the block. Huh. Well, anyway, regardless, here's what I think I'm going to do. I want to see how this team does over the next 2 weeks. We have 7 games, including a home-and-home against Pittsburgh. I want to see where we stand midway through the month, and we'll take it from there as to whether or not we really think changes need to be made. The good thing is, especially forward-wise, we have enough options that if someone gets traded or multiple people get traded, we'll be okay. As Jordan Eberle and Casey Cizikas get moved to Nashville for a second and a third. That's relatively cheap. There are players to get, though. Foligno, Iafallo, Tatar, Gallagher, Nikita Gusev was on the block. Although, in fairness, I don't think I want to acquire Gusev because there's a good chance he'll end up being on the Russian team because, I mean, of course, it's freaking Nikita Gusev. So, we'll see. And we've also used Gusev in a lot of series already because he's always a damn cheat code. So, we'll see what happens there. We beat the Kings 3-2 in the shootout. We beat Detroit 4-2. Lose to Colorado, but we get a pity point out of it. St. Louis as, big trade. Vatanen and Coleman to Calgary for Robin Lehner and a first. New Jersey, fleecing Calgary. Good God. That is insane. We lose to the Blues as well. So we're at 2-2. Can we beat Tampa? No, we can't. Can we beat Pittsburgh on the road? We might have another trade coming up here. And we do. 2 seconds for Austin Zarnik, a third and a fourth. We lost to Pittsburgh. Eric Holla and Filppula for a first and Hameliuk. And okay, so we go 2-5. Really, 2-3-2 through those 7 games. Not ideal. And maybe that is the warning sign that we needed, that changes need to be made. I mean, we are just 3 points above Ottawa. Wow, Ottawa picked up steam too. I mean, it's probably worth shopping that Ottawa pick and making the most of it because it's going to be outside of the lottery at this point. Let's take a look at the team really quickly and see what the stats are looking like. Tippett's up to an 81. So Jonathan Huberdeau is still doing very well. 57 points in 59 games. Sasha Barkov has 26 goals on the year. He's tremendous. Owen Tippett has 32 points. I mean, again, you could argue whether or not he's the right guy for that top-line spot right now, but he's turning into it, and probably turning into it a little bit faster than he would have, because we are playing him in this role as opposed to third liner. So I'll take it. 32 points for Borgstrom as well. Vinny Trocheck is still absolutely killing it. And Brett Connolly has 18 goals. So again, he's not quite where we'd want him to be. Still on 35 points. Let's check the third line here. Vetrano, 23 points, is very good. 20 points, or not 20 points, 18 points for Halleruck. I read that as an 8 at first. And then 19 points for Malgin. Fourth line, you have 15 points for Sorella, 17 for Achari, and 19 for Dryden Hunt. There's no denying we could make this team better with moves, but is that the right way to go? I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't. Defensively, Sergachev and Yandel, killing it, especially Yandel. Ekblad and Stralman have worked pretty damn well together, too. The Matheson, I can't even say the Matheson pairing. Matheson's struggling. Carpenter's not. So again, you look at the defensive side of things. I mean, can we break up Ekblad and Stralman? Sure, bump Stralman down, bring in someone new that's not Carpenter to improve the D. That can be done. Does it need to be? I don't think so. That might be overkill. Compared to the forwards, where you could make the argument where it wouldn't be overkill, it's just the move that should be made. Goaltending-wise, Francouz and Bob, not quite where we'd want them to be, as unfortunate as that is. So the question here is, if we were to make a trade and bring in a middle six option, who would get dropped? I don't think I want to drop Borgstrom or Tippett right now. I want to keep them there. So we're talking about someone from the third line potentially being dropped, or, someone just being outright replaced. I don't know if I'd play Connolly on the second line or the third line. So the question is, Vetrano I don't plan on changing. Harulyuk and Vetrano both take more penalty minutes than I prefer. Mulligan on 18 points. Or was he on 19? Yeah, he was on 19. It was Harulyuk that was on 18. Fourth line-wise, Sorella, Achari, and Hunt. Funny thing is, Dryden Hunt's not exactly as physical of an option, but he still puts up points. I think it would have to be Mulligan. Maybe just outright Mulligan that gets dropped. That could be the case. I wouldn't be against dropping Harulyuk to the fourth line, bumping up Dryden Hunt. He can play center, can he? Not well. I think Mulligan might be the odd man out. Go Vetrano, Hunt, Connolly, Sorella, Achari, Harulyuk. I think Dennis Mulligan might be the odd man out. I'm not sure. Because he's not the best defensively. He's not overly physical. He's more of an offensive threat, but he's never going to break into the top six on this team. He's never going to. And if somebody goes down to injury, Vetrano's good on the second unit, isn't he? Yeah, Vetrano's very good. I think Dennis Mulligan's the odd man out. And whether or not that means we trade him or he's a healthy scratch, I think he's the guy that goes. I think he is. Because Hunt's a much better fit on that third pairing. Or that third line. The fourth line doesn't have amazing chem, but there's not much I can do about that. At least they fit the bill of being physical, and yes, I do still like to set up the team where it's skill, defense, grinders. Physical, call it what you will. I think we know that Mulligan's the odd man out here. It's just, who do we bring in? I feel like it has to be Gallagher. It has to be. Mainly because Foligno, who I'd like to get, and is probably a little bit cheaper, is a left-hand shot. And I do like to have the proper amount of lefties and righties, especially for the power play, when we actually jump into the game and watch the computers play. The question is, Montreal has a good record. Are they still looking to move on from Gallagher? They are. They're also looking to move on from Tatar. But Tatar is also a lefty too, isn't he? He is. Brendan Gallagher's the guy. Brendan Gallagher's the guy. No doubt. No doubt. The only question is, do they have anybody on a terrible contract that I could take back? Carl Alsner. Oh, not quite who I had in mind. To try and reduce the value was the game plan here. But I don't think that's going to happen. Because Carl Alsner is that guy. They also don't even want to trade him. That's kind of crazy. Gallagher here, though, would be a pure rental. Like, if I were to take on Alsner, because... Hold on, you know what? Let me look into this really quickly. But I think Gallagher's the guy. And I think what I'm trying to see if I can do here is if I do decide to make another trade, I want to reduce the value of this as much as possible. Who has an expiring deal? Borg? Wow, so none of our big-name players have expiring deals. Tremendous. I could easily take Carl Alsner back for the rest of this year and next. And that might reduce the trade value for Brendan Gallagher. I think we just found a winning combination here. I'm still nervous about making a trade in the first place. I really am. I think it might screw with our chemistry a little bit too much. But this could work. And if I can get Gallagher back for less than a first-round pick, that would be crazy. I'd be looking at our... It's probably still going to take a first. But what if I look at our second next year? Ooh, maybe not. Maybe that's too much wishful thinking. It's still probably going to take the first. What if... I think I'm going to add Mulligan to the trade over someone like Colton Sceviour, because Sceviour does fit in better in the bottom six. He does. I think Mulligan's the guy to move here. How close is this trade? Yeah, it wouldn't. Of course, it wouldn't even be close. It was, again, wishful thinking with Gallagher's value. But is there anybody else? Is there anybody else? Bergfist, Schwint. We could add Bergfist. He's a year younger, 3 overall points weaker. I could add Bergfist, too. As an unsigned guy. How close is that? Quite close to... Okay, hey, that's not bad. So a second, Mulligan, who we're never going to use. He just doesn't fit the team anymore. And Bergfist. Quite close to fair value. And this saves me a first-round pick in case we want to make a deal. Again, Gallagher probably ends up being a rental. We take on Alsner simply because we can. I don't hate this. I don't hate this. Is there anybody else? Preferably unsigned? Yeah, preferably unsigned because Montreal's on 47 contracts that I can add to this. We have a couple of medium bottom 6 forwards. There's also Voinov, who's terrible. Ludwig, and then of course Alos isn't going anywhere. So let's go with this first. Otherwise, we're looking at... Well, Morelis is also terrible. So Voinov, and I think that's Greg Morelis, former Kitchener Ranger. Hey, it is. That is a Kitchener jersey. There you go. He's terrible. And also somehow still playing in the CHL. If this goes through, I mean, that works for me. Again, there's no danger in taking the Alsner deal unless it's like, oh, well, there's someone in free agency. But we already know who our top 6 is going to be next year. We already know what our top 4, defensemen, who they're going to be. There's no risk in this. Will that go through? Yes, it will. So we do take on the Alsner contract, but we get Brendan Gallagher at a ridiculously reduced rate, which is just great news for me, and we can just immediately send Alsner down. Yeah, there's no way he was going to be claimed. Sorry, Carl. And then forward-wise, we still have 13. So the big question is, what do we do here? I think what we do is we take out Connolly for Gallagher, and then we put Connolly here in Mulligan's role. Although if we flip that, tough call. I think that works, and we see what Gallagher can do. So like I said, there is still the conversation that could be had of like, okay, what if we move Sorella? Right? What if we move Sorella? He's a decent option for the bottom 6. Right? But we already know what Dryden Hunt can do. So say we have Dryden Hunt there instead. And then we find another third liner. Because Vetrano can play center. No, he can't. He should be able to, but he can't. We'd have to find somebody who could play center. Or we send down Borgstrom. So I think if... Yeah, because we'd rather have Skeevier as a healthy scratch and make the most of Sorella's value. We could go out and get another forward now. We could boost that third line a little bit more. They'd have to be able to play center, though. I think we're doing this. I think we're going all in. And it scares me because it might hurt our chances. We've seen what happened in San Jose in the past. But we might be going all in here. Derek Stepan, huh? Also Jordan Esterle and Justin Braun. Esterle is on an expiring deal. That'd be an interesting guy to pick up. To potentially replace Carpenter. He's top 4. He's not having a great season. He fits in on the third pair, though. Stepan and Esterle, huh? Bring in Stepan. I mean, he fits the bill of being able to play center. That's an interesting option with those two. A little bit more value there than I'd care to take back, but that's an interesting option. We'll keep Arizona in mind. Boston with nobody we'd want. Buffalo with no one we'd want. Calgary's getting rid of Blake Coleman. Really good value. Has he signed an extension? No. Interesting. Second liner, Blake Coleman, huh? Damn. He is an option. Arizona's interesting, though, because we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and pick up 2 players at once. Columbus still moving on from Foligno and David Savard, who makes way too much money and is having a brutal season. But he is a right-handed shot like I need. Apparently he doesn't fit in with the team. Foligno can play center. So we're looking at Stepan and Esterle. We're looking at Foligno and potentially Savard. I don't think I'd want Cam Atkinson in a third line role. Ooh, he still has 5 years left. Okay. So Arizona and Columbus, if we were to try and pull off the double switch here, could work. Dallas doesn't have anybody. Detroit doesn't have anybody that we'd want. Los Angeles still has Iafallo, but I think I do. He's 30-point season. He would fit in very well in that third line. Not according to like line fits or whatever, but he'd fit in well. I just can't help but think, what if we bring in another defenseman for insurance? And then Carpenter's the first guy we call up. Petrie signed an extension, otherwise he'd be perfect. There is Ben Hutton. I don't want to strengthen a division rival too much, though, just by giving them a first rounder. Hey, Ryan Pulock. See, I swore he was on the list before. But regardless, I don't think they have the forward that I'd want. But I mean, yeah, there is no denying Ryan Pulock would be in theory, a big improvement. An expensive one at that. Especially, I mean, I don't have to bring in another forward. I don't even have to bring in another defenseman. It's just something that we're pondering here. San Jose with Roussel. I kind of like that Columbus option. I don't know why, but I like the idea of bringing in 2 vets with Foligno and Savard. I like that idea a lot. Can I afford that in terms of cap space? I can. Both on expiring deals. Savard, I mean, both of them would be relying on well, then again, Foligno's actually done pretty well this year. What would this take? So this is where we could use that first round pick that we didn't have to use in the Gallagher trade, because that Ottawa pick isn't going to be worth much. Do they have, and see, this is the beauty of not signing some of the players this past offseason, is I have cap space to work with. And it's beautiful. We could take on Brandon Dubinsky as well, and his negative value. I can afford that. I mean, we'd be doing Columbus a huge favor here. But I don't hate the thought. We had Dubinsky. Now we'd be over. But then I could just give up Colton Sceviour to offset the difference, because what's really the difference between making that happen? So let's add Colton Sceviour to the deal. And he just kind of offsets with Dubinsky. We'd still be over. That's not really that surprising, I suppose. And then I'd have to add like Alzner to make that happen. So Dubinsky's a bit too much. I'm not going to be able to get negative value out of the deal. Okay, so Dubinsky's a bit too much. Not going to be able to lower the value that much more. How close is this? Not even. That's okay. So then let's just take a look at Rybinski. Let's say Rybinski and Ludwig, because neither are that great, but the values might work out here. Actually, let's just take a look at Rybinski. Still not there. We'll try and nickel and dime our way to this. What about Ludwig too? So a first and 2 map prospects for Foligno and Savard? Still not that close. What if we tack on like a 5th rounder this year? It's tough to tell with the bars, because it looks like it's in our favor. What about a 4th? Still not close. Okay. What if we go back and, I mean, Schwint's not bad. I don't really want to give up any of these guys. Kolachinok could work. Then there's also Jonathan Ong, who has a bit more value. I don't really want to give up any of these guys. I don't know. Low 4s just never work. They really never work. What if we do this? Sweeten it just a touch. I'd rather keep the draft pick. We'll add Rybinski, because we have better forward prospects and defensive prospects. So a first, a low top 4 defenseman who was a 2nd round pick of the Panthers IRL this year, 52nd overall, and Rybinski for Foligno and Savard. Still just a bit low. We will avoid, actually, you know what, let's keep the other dude. Let's see if a 7th rounder, we have 2 7th round picks this year. Is that enough We'll go with 2 7th-round picks and see if that's enough. Is it? It is. Ottawa's first. They're competing with us for the top spot in the division. Kolyachonok, Rybinski, and 2 7ths for Nick Foligno and David Savard. We're going all in. We're going all in. It shows us as over the cap now, which could be a problem. There was no cap retention or anything, so there's no reason for me to suddenly be over the cap. So if you just screwed me on this, I'm going to be very upset. But let's see what we have here. So defensively, it's Sergachev, Yandel, Ekblad, Strawman, Matheson, Savard. Carpenter will be sent down to the AHL for Petrovich. I'm not allowed to do that. And then forward-wise, we have our 10, 11, 12, and 13. That's right, I was going to move Sorella. Shit. Who can I send down? Even if I have to piss him off for the moment, can I send down Owen Tippett? God damn it, EA. God damn it. Now I'm over the cap. You didn't give me the warning about being over the cap. I'm like, oh, okay, it would have told me if I was over the cap. And now there are certain cap issues. Great. I don't regret the trade, but friggin' great. Are you kidding me? Alright, we're going to have to make another move here. Francouz hasn't been amazing, but Ingram hasn't been amazing in the AHL either. Defensively, what can I even do here? The answer might be flipping Savard. He's just a bit too expensive. Which really sucks, because I think he and Matheson, they'd be an interesting third pair. Let's go with interesting. Yeah, flipping Savard might be the answer. There just might not be another defenseman that we can pick up. That Alsner deal is coming back to haunt me a little bit. Just a little bit, but it was worth it for Gallagher. All right. There's really not much I can do. Yeah, just David Savard's not going to work out. I wish he would, but he's not going to. Even if I have to retain cap to move him, that might be the smartest move, just to max out the value. But yeah, Nick Foligno's on this team now too. Okay. Let's see if we can move David Savard. And we'll rebound and get a little bit of extra value back in the deal by retaining salary. So Anaheim's interested. Why the hell not? I see why. Yeah, because it's not looking too good for them. What if we go with a second? A second and a third? Will that go through? No. What about just a second? No. Worth a shot. What if we add a sixth? Value's too far off. I really want to move Savard for a second. That would be great. What about a second round pick next year? Because that's what I gave up to get you. Will that work? Son of a bitch. All right, Anaheim's playing hardball. What about Savard in the fifth for a second next year? Come on, Anaheim. Just work with me here. My God. All right. I'm not going to be able to get as much back as I would have hoped. What about 2 third-rounders? No. What about a third-rounder next year, but a fourth-rounder this year? There we go. All right, so we had to flip David Savard because this game doesn't know how to properly calculate how much you're taking back in a trade. I knew the math didn't work out, but the game said it was okay, so I figured if it called up or sent anybody down, we'd be good. That wasn't the case. So our defense is going to stay the same on necessity. And then forward-wise, again, we have our 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Somebody has to be dealt. Somebody has to be dealt. And I don't know who that is. It's probably going to be Sorella to make the most of that value, or Colton Sceviour. And I think I'd rather have it be Sceviour that stays. So Alexi Sorella actually has worse value than Colton Sceviour. Never mind. Colton, you're out of here. Pretty simple for me. Calgary. What will you give me for our boy here? How about a nice shiny third round pick from Colorado that'll apparently go through no problem? A second round pick next year might actually be a possibility. Will that go through? No. What about a second and a fourth? No. What about just that second next year? Jesus. All right. Well, we'd be incredibly dumb. Even though we pissed off some players on our team, we'd be incredibly dumb to not take a second round pick next year for Colton Sceviour. So I'll take it. This team, then, I think Sorella is going to be the healthy scratch. I know he has 11 goals, but I think Sorella is going to be the healthy scratch. It's going to be Hunt, Achari, and Harolyuk. Achari's better at faceoffs. Sorella will be out. We are going to be moving Nick Foligno to center next to Vetrano and Connolly. And then it's still going to be Borgstrom, Trocheck, but now alongside Brendan Gallagher. There is no denying that this is a stronger team in terms of overall. Whether or not that pans out for us, though, I don't know. I flat out do not know. My one question here now, though, now that we actually do have cap space, is there a defenseman that makes sense? And I don't think there is, because the only guy that really comes to mind is Ryan Pulock, the Pulock. But what a friggin' addition this guy would be. What an addition this guy would be. They probably don't want to retain cap, but I have to see. I mean, we're going all in. We made that decision. And it might come back to haunt us, but the good thing is we're stocked up enough that if this does backfire, the draft picks wouldn't have mattered all that much anyway. Here's the deal. If you will take on that Alzner, there's no way I'm going to be able to make this work. There's no way. I'm just worried about having a rookie on D. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. It would take Heponiemi, and that's not worth it for a rental. We're set. This team is set. There's a couple of things I could do for the sake of line chem that we'll probably work on heading into the playoffs, or we could just do it now. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do it now. So Galley is probably going to be changed to a power forward because, again, offensively, I like sniper power forward playmaker. It's the old tried and tested method. So Borgstrom obviously isn't going to be the power forward. It's going to be Gallagher or Trocheck, and Trocheck's doing really well as a playmaker. So, yeah, Gallagher is going to be changed to a power forward. We are going to have to just quickly change Foligno to a center. And Kahn is going to be changed to a two-way. Dryden Hunt is going to be switched to a left wing. Achari's good. And Jace Halyuk will be a right wing grinder moving forward. And again, defensively, we are pretty much set. Unless we wanted to go OFD. I do like actually having two ways here for the sake of the penalty kill. So I like having one, either two sets of two ways in an OFD DFD, or two OFDs, two DFDs, and then one two-way group. So defense is good. We just have to make the quick change of these forwards, and then we're going to sim the rest of the season and see what the hell happens. And if this fails and we underperform, I am never buying at the deadline again. Okay? If this fails. Now, some could argue, the argument's there. Making any changes was a bad idea. Making more than the Gallagher change was a bad idea, and that could very well be. We're going to find out one way or another whether or not, one change was too many, any changes. It's, there's so many different ways you could look at it. Again, any change was the wrong move. More than one change was the wrong move. Although, again, getting a second-round pick next year for Colton Sceviour seems like a pretty damn good move to me. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Dryden Hunt needs to be changed to a left wing. I knew I still had to move somebody else over. And then again, we still have a decent team. I don't know, man. I don't know. Am I second guessing what was done today? Yes. In theory, should I be second guessing about making this team significantly better? Probably not. But that's how this game works. You have to second guess yourself about making your team better. But I mean, we brought in Gallagher. We bring in a veteran in Foligno, and this game loves to have veterans do well and play an important part. So we're gonna find out one way or another. Last move here is Howard being changed to a right wing. And from there, we will be good to go. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'll take it. I will take it. So let's see what the chemistries happen to be now. And the good thing is with this team, we do still have options in terms of changing things up. It's a very versatile lineup. So that's what we're looking at there. Let's go best lines. It puts Vetrano on the fourth line, which I do not approve of. Wow, it screwed everything up, didn't it? Good Lord. That's going to take a bit of work to get it back. There we go. And then defensively, Signature Vandal, Ekblad, and Strawman. Matheson will not be with Petrovic. We'll bring Carpenter back in. So the power play, it has it set up Huberdeau, Barkov, Gallagher, Yandel, Ekblad, Foligno, Trocheck, Connolly, Tippett, and Borgstrom. I like it. I like it. We'll stick with that. We'll stick with that. So let's move forward. Let's sim to the end of this season and see what the hell happened. But a 5-game losing streak was enough to perhaps have me overreact in very Vegas Golden Knights style. At least I didn't fire the head coach. But we do make a lot of changes. As Ryan Pulock's been moved, along with a third, and Rocco Grimaldi for Shane Bowers, a first and a second. That's a big-time trade. Big-time trade indeed. As we lose to Colorado in our first game. Since the changes, we lose to Nashville as well, and I am officially nervous. Nick Bonino's on the move. We lose again. What about to Ottawa? We lose again. We have choked away first place in this division. We have lost 9 games in a row. Did we make the wrong choice? Did we make the wrong choice?